ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Srimad Bhagavad Gita chapter 16 verse 22. Etahi vimuktaha kaunteya tamodvarahi tribhi naraha acharati atmanaha shreyaha tato yati param gatim. O son of Kunti, a person who is liberated from these three gateways to hell acts for the welfare of his own self. By this he attains the supreme destination. In the previous verse, Shri Krishna had stated that there are three main causes of the demonic qualities. They are lust, anger, and greed, and these three lead to hellish life and destruction of the soul, meaning one has no way to come out of the miseries of the material entanglement. And because these three cause so much degradation, lead, therefore he strongly tells Arjun that one must completely renounce them. Now in this verse he states that if one is able to renounce them and become free from these three, the lust, greed and anger, then he is actually working for his own welfare. When we become free from impurities, when we become free from the infatuations of the mind like the lust, anger and greed, then we help ourselves the most. Why? Because then the doorway to the supreme destination, the eternal abode of the Lord, is opened for us. We have then the ability to tread the spiritual path to ultimately attain his abode and be from the material miseries and enjoy eternal happiness. As we discussed last time also, Shri Krishna had stated in the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as well, Shaknoti ihi ev yah sodhum prakshir vimokshanat am bhavam vegam sa yuktah sa sukhin. Before giving up the body, if one in this very life is able to control and tolerate the urges that are born of lust and anger, so it is the urge that propels us to do sinful activities. So if one is able to tolerate those urges which are manifested, then such person is a real yogi. He becomes eligible to attain spiritual perfection and thus have eternal happiness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, commenting on this verse, states that becoming free from these three gateways to darkness, a person should act for the upliftment of his soul. By doing so, he will achieve the supreme destination. The import is that by practicing religiosity or dharma and by following a regulated life as a means of self-purification, one attains Krishna Bhakti, which is the supreme destination. So what Krishna is telling here to Arjun, that if you are able to control your mind, because ultimately mind is the seat of these three demonic. So if the mind is controlled, then we would be able to control the urges of lust, anger, and greed. So if someone is able to do that, and how? By following the process of sadhan bhakti, which means a regulated life for self-purification, then one can attain the pure devotion to the Supreme Lord, which is the ultimate. Therefore, it is the mind through which we can open the gate to spiritual world for ourselves, and it is the mind only through which we can cause our destruction to hellish life. Therefore, Shri Krishna states in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Udhret Atmana Atmanam na Atmanam avasadayet Atma eva hi Atmano Bandhuratme Vripuratmanaha, that a man must deliver himself from the material world through mental detachment and not allow the mind to degrade him, for the mind is simultaneously one's friend and also one's enemy. So, the same mind can either become our greatest friend or it can become our greatest enemy. How? Shri Krishna states in chapter 6 itself, Bandhur Atmaha Atmanastasya Yen Ev Atmanaha Jitaha Anatmanastu Shatrutve Vartet Atmev Shatruvat. For that living entity who has conquered his mind, the mind is his friend. Meaning, one who has controlled the urges of the mind. Lust, anger, greed, attachment, false pride, urges or the infatuations of the mind, one who has controlled, for such a person, mind is the greatest friend. In fact, of the 3 types of miseries, the miseries caused by the mind are the most tormenting. We can tolerate the miseries given by the other people as well as given by the nature, but it is the mind, because it is with us all the time. How many times do you suffer because of heat and cold, right? How many times do you suffer because of someone saying something bad to you or hurting you? Once in a while, not all the time, but the mind is constantly tormenting, right? So if that mind comes under our control, then instead of giving us problem every moment, it will become the source of bliss and happiness every moment of our life. So Krishna says that one who has conquered his mind, the mind is the greatest friend. But for he who has not conquered his senses, his mind works against him just like an enemy. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur states further that the scriptures have described karam and gyan as the means and the end. But the real intention in doing so is to establish that it is only by maintaining a proper relationship with pure work and pure knowledge that the living entity can attain fearlessness in the form of pure spiritual existence. What is pure work? Pure work is work in Krishna consciousness. And what is pure knowledge? Knowledge that is related to bhakti, not knowledge of monists or the knowledge that is contradictory to pure bhakti. That knowledge is not helpful. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj also explains this very nicely in his commentary, where he writes that one should be very careful of these 3 enemies to human life: lust, anger, and greed. The more a person is freed from lust, anger, and greed, the more his existence becomes pure. So to the extent that we are able to control these 3 urges, to that extent our mind becomes purified, our existence becomes purified, and to that extent we become happy. Then he can follow the rules and regulations enjoined in the Vedic literature. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. So there is no looking back in the process of bhakti. One is bound to become free from the entanglement of illusory energy if one has stepped on the path of Krishna consciousness. In fact, it is said that the day you meet a pure devotee of the Lord, the day that you come in contact with devotional service, that means your process to become free from the cycle of birth and death, the process to become free from the clutches of Maya has already started. Now, it may take some time depending on how sincere we are and how strictly we follow the process of bhakti, but the process has gotten started. So the whole method of bhakti or purification is based on giving up lust, greed and anger. By cultivating knowledge of this process, one can be elevated to the highest position of self-realization. This self-realization is perfected in devotional service. So in fact, it is only by the process of bhakti that one can conquer lust, anger and greed. By the other processes, one may be temporarily able to control them, but would not be able to root these out completely from the mind. As we have seen before, that great sages like Vishwamitra and others, they were performing such severe austerities, but even they were overcome by Maya in the form of lust. But the great devotees like Namacharya Haridas Thakur, who were constantly chanting and engaged in loving devotional service of the Lord, they were not at all disturbed by any form of lust. So bhakti is the most powerful process, and it is by bhakti only that one can ultimately become free from these demonic qualities. So in devotional service, the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. It's 100% guaranteed process. In fact, Krishna confirms that in Srimad Bhagavatam. He states to Uddhav in the 20th chapter of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Proktena Bhakti Yogen Bhajato Masakrin Munehe Kama Hridaya Nashyanti Sarve Mai Hridi Sthite. That when an intelligent person engages constantly in worshipping me through loving devotional service, as described by me, his heart becomes firmly situated in me. Thus all material desires within the heart are destroyed. Very important. So Krishna is saying, one, he's constantly engaged, not intermittently or once in a while engaged in bhakti. And now one may wonder, how can we be constantly engaged? Well, in your mind you can chant all the time, just like the gopis, the Brajbasis. Whatever they were doing, they were constantly remembering and chanting the names of Krishna. Chanting Govinda Damodar Madhaveti, Govinda Damodar Madhaveti. Shri Bilvamangal Thakur sings, Vikretu Kama Khila Gopakanya Murari Padar Pita Cheta Vreti Dadhyadikam Moha Vashatavochat Govinda Damodar Madhaveti. So as the gopis go out to sell curd and other milk products, their mind is constantly absorbed in Krishna. So absorbed that instead of saying buy curd, buy milk, they say buy Govind, buy Damodar, buy Madhav. And then Ulu Khale Sambhrita Thandulanscha Saghatayanto Musalai Pramugdha Gayanti Gopyo Janita Anuraga Govinda Damodar Madhaveti. So as they are in a mortar full of grains, with the pestle they are pounding the grains to make flour, but doing that also, what they're doing, they're constantly chanting Govind, Damodar, Madhav. So just like the Brajbasis, because the mind is with us and we are always thinking with the mind. So instead of thinking of the material thing and all the problems, we can constantly absorb it in Krishna and think of him. So Krishna says that one who has similarly constantly engaged himself in worshipping me through loving devotional service. And what type of bhakti? As described by me, not through your own mental speculation, through your own ideas, but how Krishna has explained it. Such a person is fully fixed in his consciousness in me. And then all the lust, the anger, the greed, the material desires from his heart are completely destroyed and he is completely purified. And then he is able to see me. He tells to Arjun in the 14th chapter of the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Yatha yathatma parimrijyate asau mat punya gatha shavan abhidhanai tatha tatha pashyati vastu sukshmamam chakshuhu yatha ev anjana samprayuktam. When a diseased eye is treated with a medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see, right? Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth in my subtle spiritual form. So such is the power of hearing and chanting the holy name, that one who does that with sincerity is able to slowly come to the level of purification where he can see the Supreme Lord. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada states in the commentary that through the devotional process, the purification and the liberation of the conditioned soul is guaranteed. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, there are instituted the 4 orders of life and the 4 statuses of life, called the caste system and the spiritual order system. So this is not by birth or any such, but this is the natural order of the society. There are different rules and regulations for different divisions of society, and if a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of spiritual realization. Then he can have liberation without a doubt. So therefore, we should sincerely take up the process of bhakti, because bhakti guarantees our freedom from the entanglement of material consciousness. Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Have a very blessed day.